that was probably the moment when I took a stand for my beliefs. And I'll tell you, taking a stand and fighting for your own beliefs makes you very firm in your beliefs. It was tense. It was very emotionally draining for me. You know, when you have to fight for it, that's what makes me so passionate about hijab today and really shape the trajectory that I was on to then make this company. Was that passion I had for hijab, having to fight for it, never left me. And I valued it so much more, and I held it to such high regard because this was something that I had to fight for.
Welcome to another episode of Confessions of Successful Asian Women. I am so excited because I am in New York City and I am interviewing Melanie Elturk, who is the founder of Haute Hijab, one of the fastest growing modest fashion companies. And I'm really excited to have Melanie share her story. Thank you, Melanie, for joining the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for coming all the way to New York City.
It's always a pleasure being here. I feel like there's incredible energy in this city, and we're not too far from the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful space.
Yeah.
So Melanie, tell me about yourself. You have a very interesting background. You are a mix between Filipina and Lebanese.
Yes. So when you said Asian, when I first got your email, I was like, well, I am legitimately Asian. None of this Southeast Asian, like I'm real Asian. Just kidding. So yeah, my mom and dad met in college in Detroit. They both came on scholarship to the same private university, met, and really, really, I know it was a weird world growing up, but my parents actually divorced when I was 5. So, and then my dad got custody of us. So I was primarily raised in that Arab culture, not necessarily like Muslim culture growing up as a really young, because my mom is Catholic. But then as I got older, my dad got more religious. And then that's when like the Islamic identity really started forming. I'd say like middle school, more so in high school though. So growing up, it was just very, trying to just kind of figure it out, like these two worlds. And I went to church as a kid. I have a godmother. I was baptized. So yeah, lots of different exposure to a lot of different things.
That's really interesting. So you straddle between the Arab culture and the Filipino culture. Mm-hmm. And would you say you're more Arab?
You know, I would say I'm more American. I don't know that I necessarily identify with one over the other in terms of Arab versus Filipino or Asian. I think my identity as an American is really what bridges that divide. Of course, my Muslim identity is first and foremost, but, you know, like I don't listen to Arabic music or watch Arabic movies or any of that stuff. I speak Arabic because my dad remarried when I was 10 and my stepmom didn't speak any English.
Wow.
Yeah, because she learned French in school in Lebanon. You can either choose between English and French. And so I had to learn so we could communicate. So that the only reason I even speak Arabic is because my stepmom, not even necessarily my father. My dad doesn't speak to me in Arabic ever. I don't think I identify more with one or the other. I try and take the good of each and then just do away with the bad.
That's great. When did you discover your Muslim identity? What age was that?
Well, my dad kind of arbitrarily put us into Sunday school as young kids, and he himself was still trying to figure out his Muslim identity and kind of get back into that. He was not raised in like a conservative household. You know, Lebanon in like the 60s, super liberal, pretty secular. And so as he was going through it, he put us into Sunday school, and I just remember being like, what is this world? You know, I always knew we were Muslim, but we didn't necessarily practice our Islam until I got probably into like middle school. I would say my identity as a Muslim really solidified in high school. I put on the hijab at 13 as a freshman in high school. And that's when I started getting really serious about praying 5 times a day, like really praying, not just saying like, yeah, I prayed, you know, because I wanted to. And then also having a solid group of Muslim friends. I never had that until high school. I was always chilling with, the white Americans, because I didn't necessarily identify with Muslims or Arab culture. So I was just like trying to find my way.
Was there a moment that triggered that? Like, there must have been something that happened where you were drawn to your Muslim identity, whether it was praying 5 times a day or even like wearing the hijab. That's a pretty big deal.
It was a big deal. And I have to say that wearing the hijab was expected of me. So I remember my dad had brought it up that I should wear it earlier. And I just started wailing, like, what? No, this is all very new to me. I wasn't raised on it. My mom didn't wear it. My stepmom, when she came to America, she wasn't wearing it. And then she started. So it's not something I grew up with. And then I think my dad kind of did that to be like, listen, you need to know, like, eventually you're going to have to wear it. So then when high school rolled around, I didn't put up a fight. Because at that point, I knew I had a friend who was going to high school with me who was also wearing it. So I was like, okay, this is what I have to do. It wasn't forced, but it was just an expectation that I knew going into high school, I'm going to have to wear this. So I think that the moment probably wasn't even when I put on hijab. It was actually later. And there is a moment now that I'm talking. There was a moment. So I put on hijab, but that caused a lot of strife in my relationship with my mother, because as a Christian woman and already not living with her, I looked so different from her. When we would go out, people would not know that we were mother and daughter. So now you have this hijab, which further alienated us. And she had a really hard time. We went through a long period where we didn't talk. She wouldn't be seen with me in public. And so I had to make a decision. Either I spent time with my mom and took off my hijab, or I put it on and I just didn't see her. And so when I was 13, 14, it was a no-brainer for me. I didn't have that conviction when I wore it, right? I just wore it because it was expected. So I took it off. And this continued for 3 years until finally the end of my junior year, I put my foot down, because at that moment I had grown so much in my identity and my values as a Muslim that I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm wearing hijab for me now. And I feel guilty taking it off. It's become a part of my identity and I believe in it. And so that's when things came to a head with my mother and I. And that's when we had that period of not speaking to one another. She couldn't understand it. And rightly so. I think now looking back, I understand it had more so to do with her feeling distant from me. And her probably feeling like I didn't really necessarily understand it. So that finally fizzled. It took a while, but she tolerated it. She didn't accept it. She tolerated it for the sake of our relationship. That was probably the moment when I took a stand for my beliefs. And I'll tell you, taking a stand and fighting for your own beliefs makes you very firm in your beliefs. When you have to fight for it.
Especially your mom.
Yeah.
That's very close.
For sure.
It's a close relationship.
Yeah. It was tense. It was very emotionally draining for me. And so when you have to fight for something, and that's what makes me so passionate about hijab today and really shape the trajectory that I was on to then make this company, was that passion I had for hijab, having to fight for it, never left me. And I valued it so much more, and I held it to such high regard because this was something that I had to fight for.
Wow. Has your relationship changed over the years with your mom?
Yes, it's insane. And this is when, the verse in the Quran where God says, have taqwa, God consciousness in me, and I will pave the way for you. I will find a way out for you.
Taqwa means God consciousness.
Exactly. Have that God consciousness. I'll pave the way out. I'll find a way out for you. So I said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it because I know it's right, and I'm going to have that taqwa. And he found the way out for me. So it took time. It took a long time. But today, my mom literally is our number one supporter of the brand. It's insane. I never in a million years thought that she would be so supportive. She made a Facebook page of like friends of Hot Hijab, and it's so sweet. It's so sweet. You know, she's not Muslim or anything. It's not like she converted, but hearing how our company has had an effect on so many women, hearing their stories, how the hijab liberates them, empowers them. It didn't come from me. It came from this amazing community of women. And my mom, as an observer, always interested in what I'm up to, she came around. And like I said, is our number one supporter today. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long road. But thankfully, God found the way out for me.
Does she own some of your scarves?
Oh my God, yes.
How does she style them?
My mom is so fancy. She is so put together. I get my fashion sense from both sides of my family. My mom is very put together, very polished, and she's always criticizing me and saying this is old now. You need to get rid of it. Get yourself a new one. You know, this looks cheap. She maintains herself very well. So she'll wear them around her neck. She ties them around her purse. She'll wear them as headbands, you know, twirl them up and wear it as a headband. She travels internationally probably 3 times a year. Her favorite destination is Italy. So she's always getting our hijabs to wear for her Italy trips around her neck and around.
It's amazing.
You know, it's so cute.
Would you say your customer base is mostly Muslim, or do you have other customers as well? Like your mom's your customer.
Yeah. No, it's primarily Muslim. We do have other customers. Not surprisingly, we have cancer patients who want to cover their head. And then, of course, you have the conservative Jewish and Christian customers, but the vast majority are Muslim.
You started Haute Hijab in 2010?
Yeah.
And you're going into your 7th year now.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And now the modest fashion industry has just blown up.
Yeah.
There was the Modest Fashion Week, and I saw your Insta stories. You hung out with a lot of the fashion bloggers.
Yeah.
And there's a huge community that's really putting modest fashion, you know, it's putting it in the world. And there's a huge space now, and it's totally recognized. I mean, I just saw a really touching video by Gap. Did you see that video?
Yeah, you know that's our hijab.
Oh, that's amazing. Of the little girl who's wearing the hijab?
Yeah. The white hijab, right?
Oh, yeah. They were one of your customers.
Well, they reached out to us and they told us they were doing this campaign. They asked for like 20 hijabs and we were like, yes. Actually, this is a really funny story I like to tell, just to kind of, like you said, we've been around for 7 years, right? So when we first started, my husband and I, in 2010, I had a grand idea, which was to make hijab mainstream. That was my goal. That was my vision. And back in 2010, before Instagram, before these hijabi bloggers even existed, you know, for the public to see, there was nothing. We had no representation. And so to say, I want to make hijab mainstream was a crazy idea. And I kid you not when I tell you that I had family members laugh at me and say, "You're crazy? That's never going to happen."
Especially after an environment where this is post 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It just was, you know, fashion. Like, really? It'd be one thing to say politics or, you know, other forms of representation, but fashion, no, that's not going to happen. The mainstream thought is that hijab is oppressive. Hijab is it's bringing us back. And so when I said that, people just laughed at me. So fast forward 7 years later, I still had that goal in my mind, and everything we did in that company for 7 years was in furtherance of that goal. So when I got that email from the Gap, and the Gap is as mainstream as it gets, I was like, whoa, if this really does pan out, because people have asked for our hijabs many times before for different campaigns, and then they end up botching the whole thing, you know? It'll be like a marketing team, and then when they take it to the execs, they're like, no. So I said, if this really goes somewhere, this will be it. That day, I was getting flooded with emails and texts and Snapchats of this girl in a hijab, in our hijab. Every single Gap store around the world had our hijab just plastered on their ad.
It's amazing.
And I was like, whoa, this was the manifestation of that goal that I had set for myself 7 years ago. And here it is, hijab in the mainstream. And it was a crazy moment.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that you would see this day?
I don't know. I try not to think about it. I just put in the work. I do my best to keep my intentions completely pure. That I'm doing this for the greater good of our community, of course, to please my creator. I try not to think about outcomes. It's about the process, right? Just like do the work, do what you need to do and perfect that process and focus less on outcome. When outcomes come, and then when the outcomes do occur, they're that much sweeter because I wasn't expecting it. I had no expectations. It just happened.
Would you say the success of Haute Hijab is a result of luck, hard work, or prayers?
Well, I'd say prayers first and foremost because, you know, God facilitates and makes everything happen. But I would also say it was a combination of timing as well as really hard work. Because when we started in 2010, we were really the first hijab brand to go online with a very professional feel that was an American aesthetic. I just wanted to see something from me. I don't wear abaya. I'm an American that dresses like an American.
Abaya is the long Islamic dress.
Yeah. I don't even know that I'd call
It's
it
kinda
an
like a
Islamic
robe.
dress. It's kind of like a robe. I'd call it an Arab dress. You know, you don't really see abayas in other parts of the
That's
Islamic
true.
world. But it's a traditional long robe. Covers the body pretty well. And, you know, I own a ton of them and I wear them to the mosque, but I don't wear them day to day. I mean, I was an attorney going to work every day.
And you had to dress sharp.
Yeah, I'm not going into court wearing an abaya. You know, so I wanted to see a brand that existed for me and everyone like me who I knew really were thirsty for such a brand. So the timing was right for us in that we came at a time where everyone was thirsty for it. And I think that catapulted our success initially when it came to organic growth. People spreading the word on Facebook so that when we finally launched, and this is pre-Instagram, right? Pre-Snapchat. Twitter had just started. So that when we finally launched our website later that year, there was a crazy buzz. Because today, if you put out a brand, it's like, oh, another one. You know what I mean? You have to really be doing something spectacularly different. All we were doing was like, hey, here's a new brand that's by Muslims for Muslims, which was revolutionary at the time.
That's amazing. Talk about your transition from like the corporate law space to finding and running your own company.
Yeah, so my transition's kind of messy. I only quit my job in the legal field a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I was doing that's why it's taken us so long to grow. I mean, we've been slow and steady. But the reason why is because I've been doing this part-time. My husband has been doing it part-time. Until it got to the point where the company got so unmanageable because of our growth that we had to make the decision that either we were going to quit our jobs and do the company full-time or sell the company and continue along our paths. Me in the legal field and my husband in marketing. I was never in the corporate legal world. I did civil rights work in Detroit, in Chicago, and then when we moved to Dubai, I was working at the courts as a law clerk for 3 judges. So I was always in that world, but I had this whole side gig that was taking up all the rest of my time. So it was great though, because it helped the company so much in that we didn't need any legal help, which is very expensive. And as a startup, you can't afford to pay anybody anything. So I did all of our contracts, incorporation, trademarks, everything. And then having that legal mind and background really helped me run the business. I would say that was the hardest decision I had to make in the 7-year journey, was quitting my job.
Because why was it so hard?
I knew that to quit my job, my legal career would probably come to an end, because that's just the way it works in the legal field. You have a 2-year, 1-year gap in your resume and you're unmarketable. Unless I have some crazy connect, I can pretty much kiss that goodbye. And that was so difficult for me, because you put in so much blood, sweat, and tears into your legal degree.
And you probably had to pass the bar.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. And this one, and forget all the work, it's a huge passion that I'm letting go. It's something that I still miss every day, being able to utilize that part of my brain that's intellectually stimulated on a day-to-day basis, writing and reading, and I love that. So to having to leave that behind was the most difficult thing I've had to do in these 7 years.
Can you have multiple passions?
100%, and they're called multi-potentialites.
Right. I listened to the TED Talk. It was amazing.
It was.
But do you think that you have to give up one in order to pursue the other all in?
For a long time, I thought you didn't. And so I pursued both until I couldn't. I am of the school of thought that you need to be all in order to really see the success of that thing. So my legal career was great, but it was not what I imagined it would be in law school. My dream was actually to become a judge. And funny enough, I was on track to become a judge in Dubai. So to leave that dream behind, I mean, there's no way I could have done that while doing the company part-time, right? It wouldn't have happened. Likewise, running this company, to see it the success that I wanted it to be, there's no way I could have done that as a CEO part-time. So while we do have multiple passions, I think you need to find a way to manifest all those passions in the one thing you're doing. So that intellectual stimulation I need, I'm now bringing into this company, writing articles for Elle, or, whatever else, project I have going on. I'm making sure that all of my passions are at the forefront, and I bring them to the table, and I'm utilizing all of my gifts and my skill sets and my talents within this one thing, which is running this company.
That is so astute, because I know a lot of young people struggle with this, where they feel like that one job is going to give them that sense of fulfillment. They're going to follow their passion. But what you just said right now is trying to look for ways to incorporate all of your passions into that thing that you're doing. And, for those of us who work in a company setting, there are ways that you can do that. So that's really good advice.
Absolutely. To be honest, I think that the disconnect or the hurdle that most young people have isn't even the how can I utilize all these passions. It's what is my passion? I don't think people know themselves well enough to even articulate what they're good at and what they love. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But they think they know, but then when they start doing it, they're like, I guess I don't really like this that much. And it was really something else that drew them to it. And so that self-exploration of who you are, what you're good at, what your real gifts and talents are is so key.
So how did you discover your own gifts and talents?
I think that I had amazing parents who never limited me. And that makes sense, right? Like if you have a mom and dad who are willing to marry outside of their culture and religion, they're open-minded people. They're not putting limits on anything. So then that's how they raised us. There were no limits on what I could do. And everything I took interest in was encouraged. See it through. If you don't like it, you don't like it, but see it through. And so everything I was interested, there was never a no. It was an encouragement. And through that, I was able to really sharpen some skills and then realize what I liked and what I didn't like. So for the longest time, I said, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher as a child. And my dad said, great, be a teacher. And
he didn't tell you to just become a doctor or a lawyer?
Never, 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 never. We never had that sentiment like most immigrant children in my family. It was great. Go to your 5th grade teacher and in the summertime and go help her with her room, her curriculum. Go see what she needs. Go help her out. Because he wants to make sure I know what I'm saying and I mean it. And I did. I went to my 5th grade teacher and I helped her in the summer. And what I realized from that experience, every single day I would go to her classroom and I would help her with what she needed. From that experience, I learned I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be a decorator. I wanted to decorate that room. That's what brought me so much joy. Not the lesson planning or the curriculum or standing in front of 30 students. It was making this beautiful room so fun with cutout letters and exercises and activities.
And you became more specific with what you wanted.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times we get so enamored with the idea of like, I want to be
a fashion designer.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. That's what I'm saying. People think they know, but don't necessarily know. And so as I sharpened these skills, I was able to really decipher what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, and how I can manifest those skill sets in certain areas. So I will say that my dad did encourage me to explore the field of law. And this is a story I like to tell, actually, because this is a great indicator of how my parents raised me. So I wanted to decorate the room, right? And I was all about art. I was such an artsy, fartsy type of kid. I was into crafts. I would make, beaded necklaces and embroidered pants, and I would sell them to my classmates, and that's something my dad...
So you were an entrepreneur when you were a little girl.
Totally. And that was something my dad encouraged, actually. Lebanese are very savvy. Business people, very savvy. And so when he would see me creating these things, he'd say, go door to door to our neighbors and see if they want your stationery that you created with glitter glue and
so
stamps.
It wasn't even a lemonade stand. It was bigger than that.
Yeah. I had a lemonade stand too. That was like 5 years old. By the time I was in like 3rd, 4th grade, it was everything I was creating. How can you monetize? Go sell them. Same thing throughout middle school. I made this jewelry. In high school, I started sewing clothes, and then I would do that and sell them, especially to my Muslim friends, because it was impossible to find skirts like without slits, for example. So I was so enamored by this whole art world. And I told my dad, I'm going to art school. I was in IB art. I went to an IB high school, which is like very college prep. And our art program was intense. It wasn't like some high school art class. I mean, we were operating on a very sophisticated level. And I said, I'm going to art school. And he said, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean? And it wasn't because of that like Arab immigrant mentality of, no, you're not going to art school because we don't do art. It was, you are far too intelligent to not do something greater with your brain. You can always do art. And that's what he told me. You can do art anytime. You can sharpen those skills. That can always be there. But you are way too smart. And you need to exercise that intelligence. And he said, why don't you look into the legal field and see if you like it? So in our high school, we had what's called enrichment weeks, where you could shadow different fields, teaching, medicine, technology, engineering. There was a law enrichment week, which I did. And I discovered I loved it. We went to the FBI. We talked to private practitioners. We had litigators. I mean, everything, like people who just sat at a desk all day doing contracts, everything. And I thought, this is it. I want to do this. And I have my dad to thank for that, because he recognized in me my strength, encouraged and nurtured it, and made sure that my path was really honing in on those strengths.
It's amazing. So was your dad your mentor, role model?
100%. He still is. He was just here. I'm very close with my dad. I mean, he raised us as a single dad for a number of years at that critical adolescent period as well. So he was my dad, my mom, my everything. He cooked and cleaned, and he did everything.
Wow.
And I helped him, of course. His 3 kids, we all helped out. And so you create this bond that's unlike anything else.
And it shatters the stereotype of, Middle Eastern men being...
Oh, yeah. Till now, my dad
chauvinistic.
Absolutely. He does not like being served. He does everything for himself. That's how he raised us, to be strong, independent, do it for yourself, and just get it done. And so, yeah, he's probably the largest guiding force in my life.
Throughout your career and your professional journey, has there ever been a dark moment where things got really tough?
Within the company? Yeah, tons. I was just watching a YouTube video I did last year with my husband on how we started the company. And I was talking about how, from the outside looking in, this seems so glamorous and fun, and I get to go to fashion shows and all this, but what you don't see is the blood, sweat, and tears. And I was saying how I've literally cried tears over this company. And there were tons of dark moments when we were moving to Dubai, and I thought, all right, this is it. I established this whole company on Made in America, and we were manufacturing everything in Chicago, and now what? We're moving overseas, and then what? Having to figure that out, feeling like I had built this huge thing and not being able to fully get a grasp on it because it kind of took a mind of its own. Feeling like it kind of like escaped me. Feeling really at odds with my legal career and not knowing what to do. What should I pursue? At certain times, I even felt like I really failed in my legal career because I didn't follow the trajectory I thought I would in law school. There were many dark times. And then, of course, things that went wrong within the company, wrong turns that we made that really could have ruined us. And by the grace of God, we came out of it. But I mean, I remember one night I was just like huddled in the fetal position in my bed. I'll never forget it. I was in Dubai, and we had a terrible mishap with a new fulfillment center we were working with. And the very first package that they sent out on our behalf was a math book to a woman who ordered a hijab. And I was like, oh my God, life is over. People are never going to forgive us. Customer service is huge, and I'm a people pleaser. And so...
That must hurt you, too.
Oh,
because you're trying to win everyone's affection.
It was so painful. I agonized over the email I wrote to that customer. And funny enough, I met her recently in Chicago. She's like, I'm the girl who got the math book. I was like, oh my God! She was so sweet about it. Thankfully, it was somebody like her who was really understanding. And then after the math book got sent out, they sent out like 7 packages that the wires all got crossed. And so I had to coordinate with these 7 people and be like, okay, I'm going to send you a prepackaged label. Just put it in the mailbox and it'll get to the person who was really supposed to receive it. It was a nightmare. I remember that whole issue. I cried. Really, it was tough because I was letting people down.
So what pulled you through it?
The support of my husband, for one. We're both each other's rock. So when I was going through that, he was like, it's going to be fine. We're going to figure it out. And he was taking the necessary steps when I kind of shut down to be like, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to get out of this. And then a lot of prayer. I'm a very religious, spiritual person. God is with me all the time. And God got me through it. Just praying like very sincerely. If this is something that is not good for my life, take it out of my life. And if this is something that you want me to do, I'll do it. And then at every juncture, having a clear sign that this is what you're supposed to do. And I make that prayer all the time, especially when the going gets tough. And I pray, take this company away from me if it's not meant for me. I am your soldier. I'm your servant. I'm here to do what's right and do good. Put me where you need me. If that's in the legal world, I'll do it. If that's with this company, I'll do it. Just put me where you need me and I'll do it. You know, God gave me these gifts, and it's a disservice not to utilize those gifts, but show me the path.
Right.
And I will utilize those gifts to the best of my ability wherever you want me. And time again, the sign was clear that this was it. The company was where he wanted me to be.
It's amazing. That reminds me of the prayer of Solomon. Was it Solomon who prayed to God and asked for more strength so that he could do more good?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a dangerous prayer. You know, you're asking for a lot of responsibility, a lot of burden. I mean, that's not a prayer we should take lightly. You know, give me more strength so that I can do more. That's heavy.
That is heavy. You know, a lot of times we think about, you know, the things that we want to do in our life, but we seldom think about our last day on earth. And I'm just curious, like, what would you do if you found out that this was your last day? What would you do on your last day?
Oh, man. I would spend probably the whole day in repentance. Just begging God for forgiveness for anything I've done, and probably chasing people. Like, yo, forgive me for this. Because, you know, it's our belief that on the day of judgment, the things that are going to haunt us are, first of all, the wrongs we've committed against other people, because they have to forgive us for those things. And then the wrongs that we've committed in general, because they're going to rear their head. So I would chase people around and be like, please, please forgive me if I owe you anything, if I ever said anything, if I ever did anything, forgive me.
You wouldn't do things that you thought that you would always do but never got around to doing them?
No.
Like make that trip or,
no,
eat that, like,
if
amazing.
you said a year, maybe. But a day, I'm looking out for my afterlife. For real.
Thinking about the long view.
Yeah. Forget this world. I got a day left. Forget it. It's gone.
It's gone.
I got to put, eyes on the prize.
Yeah. How do you define success? Since this podcast is all about success.
Yeah. For me, personally, success is when I feel like God is pleased with me. And I know it when I'm doing good and when I'm doing what I think is good, but I'm lying to myself. I'm not being honest with myself because maybe my intentions have changed, or I'm not doing things for the right reason. I'm doing it to feed my ego. And I know, we all know. And success for me is when I know that God is pleased with me and that I'm doing what's right for the right reasons. And that's a very abstract thing.
Like, how do you know? Is it a feeling? It's
a feeling in your heart. But your heart has to be healthy in order to hear it. So if your heart is blackened with sin and diseases of the heart, it's not going to really aid you in this exercise. You have to cleanse that heart, and you have to constantly work at purifying yourself and working on those diseases in your heart, whatever yours are, because everyone has their own, so that you can heed that healthy heart. So to some people hearing this, they might think, what are you talking about? How do you know? I never know. Well, then you need to start cleaning that heart, and you'll know. You'll get to that point where you can feel it. And it's a reflection of yourself. You're feeling it because you know that God's happy with you, because you know you've done right. But when you know, and this is the thing, it goes back to knowing yourself. When you know, and you can be really honest with yourself to say, I haven't been doing this really for what I say I've been doing it for. I've been doing it to feed my ego, to glorify myself, to put myself on a pedestal. You know it. And if you know that, then you know God's not really pleased. But that step takes courage. Not everybody wants to be honest with themselves and look into the depths of their heart and admit to themselves they're not really doing it for the right reasons. That's difficult. And that's really, I think, what separates, for me, like the mu'min, the believer, the muhsin, from just like the Muslim. It's that belief on another level than just the, oh yeah, I'm Muslim, I believe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. You should be a spiritual advisor.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I have a ton of my own and I'm still learning, But yeah, I think that these things sometimes are hard to talk about because you have to be on a certain level to even grasp it.
Absolutely.
So that's why I don't go on about these things usually, unless it's like a private gathering or I know my audience. But usually when I'm talking to kids, so for example, we did this college tour last year where my husband and I went to over 30 universities and we talked to the MSA, to the Muslim kids, about defining our role here in America and making sure that our faith is a huge component of that role. And when I tell them about success, for me, I feel that success when I'm talking to them is knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, and executing that gift. Because otherwise, what are you doing? What are you here for? Why did God put you here with your specific character, traits, skill set? It's not in vain. And if your life's mission and purpose isn't figuring that out so that you can then manifest all that and put it out in the world, even if it's to the 50 people in your circle, then what are you really doing? So that's what I would say success is, figuring that out and just smashing it.
It's amazing. Oh my God, I'm having a moment. You're like, you just touched me to the core.
Oh, wow.
I think I'm going to start tearing up. Oh no.
You got me tearing up, I have to say.
Yeah.
Talking about my dad always makes me emotional, so.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we talked.
Me too. This has been awesome.
I hope that you got some revealing confessions to help you in your journey to success. To nominate a guest on this podcast, send an email to info@confessionsofsuccessfulasianwomen.com.